Yo, welcome to another Untimely review. This time we got a couple of firsts for the channel. This is the first recommended video from a viewer, Shalom, shout out that man for such a wonderful yet awful idea. And we got our first documentary. Since we're talking about a documentary this time around, we're gonna get a little bit more history than usual just for some context. With all that out of the way, let's go on an audio and visual adventure. Major spoilers ahead for the adventures of Bowl Cut Kid. Let's take a trip back to 2010, the holy year of Black Ops, The Last Airbender, and Justin Bieber's Baby with Ludacris is played everywhere, from Baby Gap to your local Applebee's. But who really is Justin Bieber? Who is the little Canadian boy that paved the way for Drake and The Weeknd? This documentary shows the lead up to his sold out show at Madison Square Garden, home of the New York Knicks, so you know that's a prestigious place. This documentary begins with footage from YouTube that looks so dated I can't believe it, and it's a bunch of different viral videos from the time. We end the little montage with Justin singing a Chris Brown song, not a great start, and we get some horror editing for some reason, and we get the premise of the doc. This is his story. Get ready to spend the next hour and 40 minutes watching young women scream, Justin looking into the camera longingly, and shitty low-res footage. Watch as these girls recite the exact date and time that Justin was born. But we want to know even more about the boy, the legend himself. So let's take a step back. We hear Justin's mom talk about raising him with some insight from his grandparents. We get to see Justin play sports, bust out a pretty good beat for like a 4-year-old, and that's when we really see this dude going crazy with different instruments. But drums were his first real introduction to playing music, and we switch back to the present to see him still being pretty dope on the drums. We cut back to see some more of his fans being openly excited, we'll say. This lady talks about him in a possible charge type of way. Actually, let me see how old he was when this was happening. Okay, so now he's 26. This came out 10 years ago. Subtract the 10, add the 0 for good measure. Okay, so he was 15 to 16 based on when this was filmed. Yep, that's a charge. Anyway, we first see his performance in Canada, the meet and greets, and we see some of the key members of his team. His road manager / stylist, general manager, seems like they shouldn't both be there, but whatever. His wardrobe person, which I would think would be his stylist, but again, whatever. His musical director, his stage manager, who we only know as Scrappy, he's my favorite, and his security. And the documentary does a pretty good job of showing how this is like a family production. I'm pretty sure they say that in all music docs, but hey, if they feel comfortable picking Justin up and possibly hurting him for the last, I can't be mad. Also, this movie is produced by Scooter Braun, who I only know as a possible asshole, so just to hedge my bets, I'll be skimming through his major parts. Anyway, we see his vocal coach and his dad, who I initially thought was the type of dad who comes back around only when the kid gets famous, but then I saw him and Justin's mom and he was crying, so I guess their relationship is pretty good. We pick back up with the rest of his Canadian performance, where Boyz II Men are playing backup to Justin. And I know anybody older than 27 watching this was losing their minds. For some reason, there's edits of baby Justin popping up on screen during the performance. Not like the screen behind him in the show, but like the movie screen. I don't know why they did this, and it just seems weird to me. When the performance is over, Justin spends the night at his grandparents' house, and the next day, Justin goes to play with his normal people friends. And even though at this point, bro is a megastar, he still has to clean his room. And I can't tell if it's staged or not, it probably is, but I like it anyways. The next performance we see, the homie Sean Kingston is there, and then we cut back between that and Justin and his friends hanging out during the day. Justin has an awful looking shot, but he's kind of clean with it, so I can't judge. Oop, never mind. Then there's a point where he goes up to this girl playing the violin and gives words of encouragement, and it's super awkward and a little too produced, especially since he used to perform there. But it's nice, I guess. There's some more backstory on when Justin was 12 and really starting to make noise in his town. We see an early talent show, but the main part is where he starts uploading performances to YouTube. The next part is where he gets discovered by Scooter, so I'll just give the Cliff Notes. He finds him on YouTube. Justin's mom calls Scoots on something called an internet phone, I don't know what the fuck that is, to tell Scoots to stop being a creep and calling Justin's school, but then they go to Atlanta a couple times to try and get a record deal, and Ursha Raymond helps connect Justin to L.A. Reid, huge guy in the industry, signed mad people. L.A. Reid is super impressed, so he signs him, and Justin and his mom move to America. That's where they connect with his vocal coach, and we get some scenes with Ursha and Justin working together. Cut to another performance. In terms of a spectacle, it is a feast for the eyes, but I don't care, so we're moving on. After the performance is over, we get some more backstory on Justin's rise and how radio didn't want to play him at first, but then he just started playing on radio stations anyway, so it's a weird transition. But him playing at radio stations made people want to play his record at the time, so it all worked out. We get another section dedicated to his fans doing like tributes or something, which is probably the worst part of the movie. Oops, sorry, this is bigger than that. It's probably the worst part of this documentary, but I get why it's here. Without his fans, this wouldn't even have been a thing, but I just don't want to see middle school girls talking about why they love this kid. This happens, which should have never been allowed. Then we get a section of the doc dedicated specifically to his hair. I remember this being like a thing at the time, but I forgot about it, and now I'm very upset that Scoots thought that this was important to put into the doc. After that, there's some slow motion horseplay, and yo, they got Snoop in this? Okay. But right after that, Justin eats donuts in the garbage, and I just don't understand what's happening anymore. This dude Randy pops up to talk about how Justin's popularity was unheard of because of how fast he blew up. Then we get a bunch of clips of famous people talking about him, and then we get the Bieber fever that took over the world. There's some more performances, we finally get to see Usher perform, and once that's done, we get what may be the strangest fourth wall break that only makes sense if you watch this in the theaters because it's all theater type shit. And I don't think I've ever seen such a specific and out of place thing in a documentary before. After that, we see Justin's team be the humanitarians that they are and give out some free tickets to fans, but they're giving out tickets at the concerts, which is weird to me because either that means people go to concerts without having tickets, or they're getting better tickets, which is also weird because it seems like all these shows were supposed to be sold out. Either way, seems like a strange way to go about it, but it's nice for his fans that don't have tickets, I guess. Then, surprise, surprise, another performance. But this one is really important because he's singing One Less Lonely Girl. This will be important later in the video, so just sit tight. The next part is where the team really ramp up for the Madison Square Garden show, and we see the little homie Jaden Smith, known karate expert, but then Justin is starting to have some vocal issues. Oh no! We get some more drama when we see Justin being pulled between having a normal childhood and the superstar lifestyle, where we see Hannah Montana also talk about some of those struggles. They perform together, and after the show, Justin's voice is even more raspy. 3 days till Madison Square Garden, and Justin and Jaden are having a little Q&A with his fans, but his voice isn't recovering, so they have to move one of his shows to give him some time to rest. We see that it's really hard for him to let his fans down. And then it's the day right before Madison, and Justin goes to the doctor to see if the swelling in his throat has gone down enough for him to be good to go, and we see way too much of the inside of bro's throat. We cut to the best B-roll of the whole doc, and we get some really emotional and moving scenes about Justin's journey so far, and before you know it, the day's here. Fans all over the city. This dude is just trying to cross the street. We see the homie Snoop again, Dave Beckham's Will Summertime Smith, and that guy from Degrassi all come out for Justin's show. Before the show, Justin and Usher have a nice heart-to-heart, and we get this monologue by Justin about how far he's come right before the show. When he gets on stage, he delivers this extremely profound soliloquy that ends with him saying the title of the movie, and we get his performance. He brings Jaden and Luda out, and the documentary ends with their performance. Wow, what an electrifying experience. Alright, so first I just want to say that I'm very surprised at myself for even making it through this whole thing. I'm not now, nor have I ever been, a Bieber fan. Not to mention, for some reason, this fucking movie looks like shit. I guess it's the completely legal version that I have, because I know it couldn't have looked this bad in theaters. But even with it saying that it's 720p, this looks worse than my old VHS tapes. But let's get into what I actually thought about the movie. So I have two takes on this. The cynical one, the right one, where this is all just Justin propaganda, and what I assume the fan position would be. I'll do the fan perspective first. I think that if I were a Justin fan, I would like this movie because you get to see one of his biggest performances and you get some more history, even though some of those girls in this doc probably knew all this even when it was getting filmed because they're a bunch of little Nancy Drews and Hardy Boys. I feel like that reference is dated even for me. But even if you were just vaguely interested in Justin, this would probably be a good jumping off point. But I think that it definitely leaves a whole lot out because it's geared more towards his middle school demographic. From a more critical look, I think that this movie is just a cash grab and a feel-good story made to exploit this kid even more than he already was. Personally, I think that's the most interesting part of this. I don't really think that I've ever seen a kid superstar story like this before, and seeing him actually struggle between his old normal life and the crazy pop star life is a story worth telling. It should just be done better than this. Throughout the doc, Justin himself seems like an alright kid. He's obviously very spoiled and kinda awkward, but it kinda makes him seem more down to earth actually. It's weird. But this is where I want to talk about that one less lonely girl part of the doc. Get ready for some racism.
One less lonely nigga. One less lonely nigga. One less lonely nigga.
Like, this was a pretty long part of the doc in comparison to his other performances, and bro just had to be racist. Now, this isn't me saying he deserves to be canceled or that you shouldn't listen to his music or whatever. I just think that the fact that we only see a max like 30 people in this movie, including fans that are people of color, is interesting, and then a big part of this movie is centered around him singing the song, and then like 3 years after this movie comes out, that video drops. Justin is a white kid from the suburbs of Canada. I really don't think he knew what he was doing, but I'm also definitely not giving him a pass. He fucked up and honestly didn't get as much flack as he should have. This is especially a problem because of how he uses and sees black culture, and from what I've heard about him when he got older, he really started to lean into that. Throughout the doc, Justin comes off as the type of kid who will do anything to get attention from his friends, and that breeds this type of behavior. Saying edgy shit for cheap laughs perpetuates this. But considering America's history with racism, that's honestly not surprising. Canada's not off the hook either. I ain't forgot what Trudeau was doing at those Halloween parties. I just think that it's crazy that the documentary really lingered on him performing the, I guess, radio-friendly version of the song. I really only bring all this up because one, it's something that I think that people who didn't know about this should know, and two, it actually kind of shows how much things changed in the past decade. As much as I don't think that cancel culture actually does anything, it still has a powerful voice. Imagine if this came out now and how his fans and just onlookers would react. The last two things I want to say about this is that I get why there was so much jumping around with Justin's story, and near the end they kind of stopped doing this, but if it just started at Justin's first like 10 or 12 years, then got into the whole point of the doc, this would have been a much better doc for me. And finally, I think it's important to say that this movie just wasn't made for me. I'm not in any of this dude's demographics, so that's why I couldn't care less about this whole thing. As a doc, I guess it works because you get some type of insight into his life, but none of it was really all that interesting or special to me. If you're a Justin fan, even after the racism, and somehow haven't seen this, I'd say go right ahead. If you're not a Justin fan and haven't seen this, keep living your life as usual. So what did you think? Should I never do a documentary again, or did you like the changes? Let me know in the comment section below, let me know what I should review next, and thanks for watching.